Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. Yes, it's been a little while since my last one. There was a film I watched a few weeks ago that I made some notes. Well, not notes, it was just one line really. It's a film called Driven, and it's about, well, you can see the film, I don't want to spoil it, but it's the thing that I came away from it was how it made, and I don't know whether it actually mentioned this itself, because I can't remember now. It's been I've forgotten it. But it was talking about how, or how I saw it, as that bad men are seen as like robbers and car thieves and stuff like that, whereas no one considers a businessman or a government individual as bad. I think it's because it was to do with, he's a car designer, and he gets involved with. He has to get money to design his car, and he uses. He's not a drug dealer, but it's to do with that. But he's actually an informant. So I think it's the idea that they tried to separate the businessman and the government individual who did bad things, but they weren't considered bad men. It was the stealing and the drugs, that kind of criminal activity, that was seen as bad. But when you look at it, the businessmen, how they make you slaves, how government, they've defined how your life should be through education and through the systems that we all live in, and that we don't have freedom as that word pertains to. We have a sort of selective freedom. We can't do everything that we want to do, and we live in a confined money slave life situation. So, but they're not. That's not considered bad, because that's considered, well, that's how life is, and there's nothing else we can do about it. That's the usual excuse that is given to that. So yeah, that was interesting. Another thing was, I was thinking the other day, how is it possible in the world that we live in, knowing all the suffering that's going on, that children are starving, even in this country, in the United Kingdom, let alone around the world, where there's lots of other places that are far worse off, due to war, due to famine, due to corrupt governments, due to, whatever reasons, that these poor individuals, that they're born into this poverty and starvation and short lives and suffering. How is it then it's possible for someone to buy a Rolex watch or a Jag? It just dawned on me that, I mean, I know it's nothing new, but how do you get away? How do you square that away in your own mind, to think that it's fine that you can spend unnecessary amounts of money on these stupid, frivolous things when people are starving? If you've got that much money that you can buy Jaguar rather than, say, just a normal BMW or a Casio watch instead of buying a Rolex, buy a decent watch, but not like £1,000 Rolex watch. Save that £700 and give it to, or 800, 900, whatever it is, to buy a decent watch, and give that to the poor people that you see out on the streets. The problem is I wouldn't advise giving it to charities, because I don't believe in charities anymore, because these charities have, a lot of them have lasted 100 years and they haven't solved anything. Whether they're just a band-aid, I don't know, or maybe I'm not doing them justice. Maybe that's the problem, just because they're a band-aid, because they don't get enough money to actually solve the problems. But I would just rather people give to people they actually see what the problem is. I saw this program, I think it was on Channel 4, Channel 5, and I think this was the reason it was made. It was about a guy who stays out with homeless people, and a lot of them, he found out, were actual opportunists, that they actually had council flats or had places to live, and they would just go out on the streets and make a living that way. So it's difficult in this world that we live in, of liars and bastards and cheats, to actually be decent and help decent people, because you don't know. I guess that's the truth about everything, is we only actually know what happens inside our own minds, and we're guessing with other people. And the other thing I was thinking of recently is education. How education is not about, when you think about education and people talk about how great it is, and it is great, but the thing is it's seen as this thing of like, this is imparting knowledge on human beings, and it's our job to do this and to educate people. Whereas the thing is, what education is really about is a way to leverage people, put one brother another brother in the aspect of their learning, and by giving them tests. Because if it was just about imparting knowledge, which is very important to be able to live it in this world, because, you know, why have to relearn it over and over again when you've already learned it? You can pass it on to the next generation, and they can then move on, you know, without having to relearn the stuff that you've had to do. So yeah, it has its importance. Obviously, it has importance if it's true education that's being taught. If you're teaching, like a lot of teachers do, without knowing, fallacies and ideas that have no proofs, you know, we all know what I'm talking about, then it has no merit to it. But what's the need of a test at the end? And yeah, some people will try and argue at teachers maybe that, oh, it's so that you can know if they're doing well and move it to the next level and this and that. Well, yeah, okay, that's fine. But what about the certificate at the end? Why do you need to grade people? What's that about? Why does, you know, if they know how to do maths or English or whatever, or speak, that's good enough, isn't it? That's what you really wanted to do. You wanted to educate them so they could do those things. But by giving them grades, that's really about jobs and about splitting people up and giving people opportunities, and so otherwise everyone would be able to get the same job. But that's the kind of world that we live in, where we grade each other. I mean, it's disgusting when you look about it, and a lot of people who come from religion should know about, you know, you shouldn't put a brother upon another brother. They know all that kind of concept of why do all these religious countries have education exams. Let's just impart the knowledge without the need to say that you're better than this one or you're not as good as that one. It's just the way that we live our life. It's a different kind of, I guess I'm sort of looking at a sort of utopian type of way of life. And I know by using that word, and that easily gives other people targets to sort of shoot me down and say, oh, well, that's not possible, and you're, you know, flower power and all that kind of stuff. But as I've argued previously, the way we've lived has changed throughout millennia. You know, if I was born 1,000 years ago, I'd be in a farm digging up potatoes or whatever, you know, and your existence would be completely different. You know, have different rules, different systems. If a woman was seen to know the future or something, or she'd be burned at the stake for being a witch, whereas now she'd be reading your horoscopes. You know, so or presenting most haunted. So you see what I'm trying to say, that it all changes, everything's changed. So that idea that we couldn't live in a better world is rubbish. It's we choose, or we've allowed choices to be done on our behalf, or we don't stand up and voice them enough as a people. We just get on with the life, and you know, because we're always, as kids, when we question these things, because I remember when I was saying it now, when I question these things to my dad, that's the kind of thing that you'll get, or other people, is that, oh, this is the way that life is, there's nothing we can do about it, that's just how it is. Well, that we shouldn't be teaching our children. We should be teaching our children that, yes, look at it, you can make anything you want. If I tell you that's a tree, it's a tree. If you go to another country, it's called something else. If you go to different countries, you find different systems, variations. They're all much the same, but you know, we could live however we choose to live. So that's what we should be teaching our children, and we shouldn't be testing them so that we can grade one above another, because it's just wrong in so many ways. And the other thing is, obviously, at the moment, that this pro-aggression thing in the Supreme Court, and I'm pretty sure that it's how it's going to come out. Because obviously in London, when the first case came out, it was dismissed. In Scotland, it was accepted that the government had, or they suggested they may have broken the law, or they're stymieing the law to get the no-deal Brexit out. And I don't know whether that's because, you could say, is that because Scotland against Whitehall, against Westminster against London? You know, was it that the reason why? I know that's the easy argument to get out of it, but I don't think it is because of that. But what I do know is that when it comes to London now with the Supreme Court, that it is going to go back to the way that the government wants it, because this is London, and I mean, they must be in so many pockets and so many, you know, government ministers' plans and this, that, and the other, and you know, go and drink together. This is bullshit that you think there's ever going to be any kind of what's the word that they use that I always laugh about? Independent. As if humans can possibly be independent. This is proof of it, because no matter how you look at it, you've got three different views. You've got the London view, you've got the Scottish view, and now you're going to have the Supreme Court view. you'll have three different views, and it should make you worried that if you ever got to a court case and you were, wrongly accused of murder or something, that you could come out with three different verdicts depending on the people. And that's where I think we go wrong, is this idea that we believe that we can judge each other, because the problem is we believe that we can think that people could be fair or independent. Well, that's bullshit. Even when people who think that they're fair and independent, their brains have been programmed throughout time, throughout the experiences that have gone through, that have made them think the way that they are. So it's really very difficult to really be independent or truly fair, because you're already confirmation bias and all these kind of psychological things we all know about. But the fact is we still have juries and still have people judging other people, which of course comes a lot of it from the Bible, and I guess it predates the Bible into how sheriffs and laws and all that kind of stuff was done in the past. But yeah, I'm thinking it's a little bit of an act, and as I believed that I don't think this no deal, this Brexit will ever happen, and this is just a bit of theatre between all of them to create this effort to go back to Europe and make people actually, without thinking about it, turn on themselves in their minds. People who may have voted to leave Brexit will now be against Boris Johnson, who wants to get out with no deal, but they'll be against him because he's prorogated government, because they think that our freedoms have been taken away and Parliament can't do their job. And they're forgetting that these people, they don't care about individual people, because if they did, they wouldn't be starving, and there wouldn't be in the council situations that are going on and the money loss and all that kind of stuff. Look at if you did something and you had a deal and you failed to meet the deadline, do you think you'd be able to extend 3 times? No, but we can with Brexit. Governments can do it. Look at the mess that they made of that bridge that the Avengers woman Joanna Lumley came up with the Prime Minister Boris Johnson. How many millions that cost, and nothing even got made. Now you've got is it H2, where it's gonna last an extra 6 years or whatever, and then extra 100 billion. I mean, if you made those kind of mistakes, you wouldn't be in a job. You'd be in a jail by now. But these people can get away with it because this is how they're generating money. Where's all this money going to? How can you never build a bridge and all the money goes away just by drawing on pieces of paper? The world we live in, when you actually open your eyes and see everything, there is so much deception and lies. But yet we're all taking it. We'll go to bed and we'll wake up again, eat our breakfast, go to work, carry on, and so on. Take care, take it easy. God bless and peace.